Fresh from the waters of baptism, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Unlike John, who had chosen the desert as his home, Jesus entered this barren landscape with a different purpose. This would be no place of ministry but a battleground, a place of testing. For 40 days and 40 nights, Jesus fasted. The sun beat down mercilessly during the day, while the desert nights brought bone-chilling cold. By the end of those long days, his body was weakened with hunger, his lips cracked from thirst. It was then that the tempter came. The devil approached Jesus, his voice smooth and reasonable. "If you are the Son of God," he said, gesturing to the stones scattered across the desert floor, "tell these stones to become bread." The suggestion hung in the air between them. It seemed so simple. Just a word from the one who would one day multiply loaves and fishes could now satisfy his own gnawing hunger. But Jesus looked beyond the immediate relief to the deeper challenge. "It is written," he replied, his voice firm despite his physical weakness, "people do not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." The devil, undeterred, changed tactics. Suddenly they stood atop the highest point of the temple in Jerusalem. Below them, worshippers appeared as tiny specks moving through the temple courts. The holy city spread out around them, unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding above. "If you are the Son of God," the devil said again, "throw yourself down, for it is written, 'He will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone.'" Jesus looked down at the dizzying drop, then back at his adversary. "It is also written, 'Do not put the Lord your God to the test.'" For a third time, the scene shifted. Now they stood on a mountaintop so high that kingdoms and nations spread out before them like a living map. The devil swept his hand across the panorama of cities, fields, and palaces. "All this I will give you," he promised, his voice dropping to a persuasive whisper, "if you will bow down and worship me." Jesus' response came swiftly, with the authority that would later calm storms. "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, 'Worship the Lord your God, and serve him only.'" At these words, the devil left him. The battle was over. Angels came and attended to Jesus, bringing him the sustenance and comfort his body desperately needed after the long fast and intense spiritual conflict. When Jesus heard that John had been put in prison, he knew it was time to begin his public ministry. The voice in the wilderness had been silenced by Herod's chains, but the message would continue through the one John had announced. Jesus left Nazareth, the town where he had grown up, and made his home in Capernaum by the lake, in the area of Zebulun and Naphtali. This move was no accident of geography, but a fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy. Land of Zebulun and land of Naphtali, the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. From that time on, Jesus began to preach. His message echoed John's, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." But while John had pointed forward to the coming one, Jesus now proclaimed the kingdom's arrival in his own person. One day, as Jesus walked along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, their strong arms working with the practiced rhythm of experienced fishermen. Jesus called to them over the lapping of the waves, "Come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people." Without hesitation, they left their nets, their livelihood, their security, and followed him. Going on from there, Jesus saw two more brothers, James and John, in a boat with their father Zebedee. They were preparing their nets for another day of fishing. Jesus called them too. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed Jesus. Jesus traveled throughout Galilee, teaching in the synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. News about him spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. The people who had walked in darkness had indeed seen a great light, and that light was beginning to draw followers from every corner of the land. The man who had stood alone against the tempter in the wilderness now found himself surrounded by crowds seeking healing, teaching, and hope. The ministry that would change the world had begun.